Hey everyone, Brian Elliott with Focus Story Films here. It's been a little while since I've made a video talking to you guys, but today I wanted to talk about my old friend, the Panasonic GH5, and why I think it's still relevant, even though I do a ton of shooting on the FX9, which I'm shooting with right now, with the Pocket 4K, and with the Sony a7 III. Specifically, I want to talk about it during live event shooting, because I think that this is still the king of live event shooting cameras when it comes to the mirrorless world. I have shot weddings on it for years, but I'd kind of written it off a little bit because I really loved the image of the Pocket 4K and then the FX9 and even the a7 III. But I shot a dance competition event this last weekend, and this camera really saved my bacon. I shot literally footage on every single camera that I own, but my favorite footage actually came from the GH5, and so I want to talk about why. The first day that I shot mostly statically on tripods with the FX9, with the Pocket 4Ks, and a little bit with the a7 III. And the footage came out just fine. It's great, but it wasn't dynamic. It didn't feel, there weren't a ton of different angles. Those aren't cameras that are near as easy to move around discreetly, so I mostly stayed locked off. And when I was looking at my footage that night and the next day before I shot for the second day, I was really thinking like, this doesn't feel dynamic. This doesn't feel like you're really like there in it with the dancers. It feels very far away, very removed, not engaging in the way that I want it to feel. And then I thought about the GH5 and how I'm able to shoot with it. And it gave me the idea of, okay, maybe I should go, side stage, backstage, just be able to run around with this small little package and get a lot more dynamic shots. And I actually was able to. And I want to talk about some things that make this camera really good for that kind of work. The first is the micro four thirds sensor, because you can have really small lenses like this. This is the 35 to 100, so it is a 70 to 200 full frame equivalent lens. And look how small and light this guy is. I can run around with it all day and not get super tired. If I was shooting on the FX9 with a 70 to 200 handheld, I'd need it on a shoulder rig. I'd probably want to follow focus on it. I'd want a rail system. And, that really sticks out like a sore thumb. If I'm, side stage, backstage, I've got to be really careful that I'm not running into people with it. This guy, I can basically, if I'm moving, I can tuck it into my body and move, or, hold it above my head and move through people really quickly and easily. Not so much with a camera like the FX9, or the same is true for the Pocket 4K, or even the a7 III, because one, its stabilization system, not as good, and two, you've still got those full frame lenses that you're using, so it's still a much bigger package. The second thing is the InBody Stabilization of this guy that makes it very easy, because I don't need a monopod or a tripod attached to it. With the Pocket 4K, absolutely you need that. With FX9, generally I'm going to want that at longer focal lengths. And the a7 III going to want at least a monopod at longer focal lengths. But this guy I can literally shoot at 100 millimeters, 200 millimeter equivalent, and get a really stable shot. If I'm just using some basic proper handheld technique, keeping my hands against my body, sometimes putting my eye against the eyepiece for a little extra stabilization, like I can get something that looks very good, like it was shot on a monopod or a proper shoulder rig. Really steady stuff, even at those distances. And most of the time, when I was shooting from the crowd on the second day, I was at the 100 millimeters. When I was side stage, I was anywhere along the focal length, because the dances were moving. And so I was trying to capture a bunch of different shots very quickly and just moving in through and out the focal lengths. So I was using all kinds, but I was using 100 sometimes, and I could get super stable shots. It was fantastic. This camera is very easy to move very quickly. If I want to get a high angle, then drop to a low angle, medium angle, shift it around. You know, I can do all kinds of stuff with this camera really, really quickly and get all kinds of shots way faster than I can with the FX9, for example. So this camera is great for that kind of environment. I was able to just capture so many more shots, so many more angles, move so much faster on the second day, and I'm going to be able to create a really, really dynamic, exciting promotional video because I chose to go with the GH5. Now, obviously with the GH5, you're sacrificing a little bit of image quality. The highlight roll-off is not as nice. There's not as much dynamic range. The picture just doesn't look as filmic. You don't have the option to get as shallow of a depth of field if you want it. F2.8 on this lens is like an F4 on my FX9. So in terms of depth of field, so there's some trade-offs there. But when it comes to telling my story for a live event, I'd much rather have more shots than just a few shots that maybe look a little prettier, but having more really exciting action type shots is a lot better in these kinds of situations, particularly for a dance event, or if, say, you're capturing a promotional video for a theater production or something like that, or even going back to weddings like I used to shoot on this guy all the time. There's just so much dynamic stuff you can do with the GH5 handheld with a little bit of proper technique. You basically don't need to have a tripod or monopod most of the day. This will not get a new lease of life for me when it comes to creative projects, when it comes to corporate video, when it comes to anything where I have the time to set up shots and where I'm in control of what's happening, because something like the FX9 with its 15 stops of dynamic range, really nice highlight roll-off, full frame sensor, amazing low light capabilities, it just can't be beat in the sub $10,000 kind of camera price range. It's right around $11,000. So, if you get into Red and Ari, then yeah, you're going to beat it. But if you're looking kind of around, the Canon, the Sony, Blackmagic, you're not going to find like a nicer image with the feature set of something like the FX9. So I really love the FX9, but for certain scenarios, the GH5 is still a really, really baller camera. I really, really enjoy it. It is such a great camera, packed so full of amazing features. So that's really all I had for you guys. I just wanted to give it a little shout out to the GH5 and what it can do for you. Don't feel like if all you've got is a GH5 in a world of FX9s and C500 Mark IIs and C300 Mark IIIs, that you can't create cool stuff, because this camera really can be a great camera, especially for events. It really has saved my bacon many times. So I hope that this video was helpful, encouraging to some of you guys who are big GH5 fans, and I will catch all of you very soon. Peace.